Good morning, scholars, or good afternoon. Let me ask you a question. Do you like going to the dentist? Today, we are going to read a story about a dentist who likes to help people feel better. While we are reading, I want you to think about how he is important to his community's system. Dr. Desoto by William Steig. Dr. Desoto, the dentist, did very good work, so he had no end of patients. Those close to his own size, moles, chipmunks, etc., sat in the regular dentist chair. Larger animals sat on the floor, while Dr. Desoto stood on a ladder. For extra large animals, he had a special room. There, Dr. Desoto was hoisted up to the patient's mouth by his assistant, who also happened to be his wife. Dr. Desoto was especially popular with the big animals. He was able to work inside their mouths wearing rubbers to keep his feet dry. And his fingers were so delicate and his drill so dainty they could hardly feel any pain. Being a mouse, he refused to treat animals dangerous to mice, and it said so on his sign. Dr. Desoto, dentist. Cats and other dangerous animals not accepted for treatment. When the doorbell rang, he and his wife would look out the window. They wouldn't admit even the most timid-looking cat. How does Dr. Desoto help his community? Dr. Desoto and his wife help many animals in the community as dentists from big to small, but they do not treat any animals that are dangerous. So it seems to me like Dr. Desoto and his wife, who's also his assistant, love to help people in the neighborhood, in their community, but cats and dangerous animals are not allowed. One day, when they looked out, they saw a well-dressed fox with a flannel badge around his jaw. "I cannot treat you, sir," Dr. Desoto shouted. "Sir, haven't you read my sign?" "Do you think they should let this fox in?" It seems like they're refusing to serve this dangerous-looking fox. Cats and other dangerous animals not accepted for treatment. So this fox is not allowed in because he may eat them. "Please," the fox wailed, "have mercy, I'm suffering." And he wept so bitterly it was pitiful to see. "Just a moment," said Dr. Desoto. "That poor fox," he whispered to his wife. "What shall we do?" "Let's risk it," said Mrs. Desoto. She pressed the buzzer and let the fox in. So why were Dr. Desoto and his wife hesitant to let the fox in? A fox came to the office, but they were scared to let him in because he was dangerous looking. But they let him in because he was in a lot of pain. This tells me that Dr. Desoto and his wife are very compassionate and understanding. They're worried about their lives, but they still wanted to help. He was up the stairs in a flash. Bless your little hearts, he cried, falling to his knees. I beg you, do something. My tooth is killing me. Sit on the floor, sir, said Dr. Desoto, and remove the bandage, please. Dr. Desoto climbed up the ladder and bravely entered the fox's mouth. Oh, wow, he gasped. The fox had a rotten bicuspid and unusually bad breath. This tooth will have to come out, Dr. Desoto announced. But we can make you a new one. Just stop the pain, whimpered the fox, wiping some tears away. Despite his misery, he realized he had a tasty little morsel in his mouth, and his jaw began to quiver. Keep open, yelled Dr. Desoto. Wide open, yelled his wife. I'm giving you gas now, said Dr. Desoto. You won't feel a thing when I yank that tooth. Soon the fox was in dreamland. Yummy, he mumbled. How I love them raw, with just a pinch of salt and a dry white wine. They could guess what he was dreaming about. Mrs. Desoto handed her husband a pole to keep the fox's mouth open. So what was the fox dreaming about when they were working on his mouth? The fox was dreaming about eating these two mice. Very good. Let's keep reading. Dr. Desoto fastened his extractor to the bad tooth. Then he and his wife began turning the winch. Finally, with a sucking sound, the tooth popped out and hung swaying in the air. I'm bleeding, the fox yelped when he came to. Dr. Desoto ran up the ladder and stuffed some gauze in the hole. The worst is over, he said. I'll have your new tooth ready tomorrow. Be here at 11 sharp. The fox, still woozy, said goodbye and left. On his way home, he wondered if it would be shabby of him to eat the Desotos when the job was done. After office hours, Mrs. Desoto molded a tooth of pure gold and polished it. Raw with salt indeed, muttered Dr. Desoto. How foolish to trust a fox. He didn't know what he was saying, said Mrs. Desoto. Why should he harm us? We're helping him. Because he's a fox, said Dr. Desoto. They're wicked, wicked creatures. That night, the Desotos lay awake worrying. Should we let him in tomorrow? Mrs. Desoto wondered. Once I start a job, said the dentist firmly, I finish it. My father was the same way. But we must do something to protect ourselves, said his wife. They talked and talked until they formed a plan. I think it will work, said Dr. Desoto. A minute later, he was snoring. So what does Dr. Desoto decide to do? He decides that he will finish the job he has started. The next morning, promptly at 11, a very cheerful fox turned up. He was feeling not a particle of pain. When Dr. Desoto got into his mouth, he snapped it shut for a moment, then opened wide and laughed. Just a joke, he chortled. Be serious, said the dentist sharply. We have work to do. His wife was lugging the heavy tooth up the ladder. Oh, I love it, exclaimed the fox. It's just beautiful. Dr. Desoto set the gold tooth in his socket and hooked it up to the teeth on both sides. The fox caressed the new tooth with his tongue. My, it feels good, he thought. I really shouldn't eat them. On the other hand, how can I resist? We're not finished, said Dr. Desoto, holding up a large jug. I have here a remarkable preparation developed only recently by my wife and me. With just one application, you can be rid of toothaches forever. How would you like to be the first one to receive this unique treatment? I certainly would, the fox declared. I'd be honored. He hated any kind of personal pain. You will never have to see us again, said Dr. Desoto. No one will see you again, said the fox to himself. He had definitely made up his mind to eat them with the help of his brand new tooth. Dr. Desoto stepped into the fox's mouth with a bucket of secret formula and proceeded to paint each tooth. He hummed as he worked. Mrs. Desoto stood by on the ladder, pointing out spots he had missed. The fox looked very happy. I'm wondering why the illustrator decided to show us Dr. Desoto painting his teeth. This really lets me know how big the fox is in comparison to Dr. Desoto and his wife. Dr. Desoto really did something nice by taking care of this fox. When the dentist was done, he stepped out. Now close your jaws tight, he said, and keep them closed for a full minute. The fox did as he was told. Then he tried to open his mouth, but his teeth were stuck together. Excuse me, I should have mentioned, said Dr. Desoto. You won't be able to open your mouth for a day or two. The secret formula must first permeate the dentine. But don't worry, no pain ever again. So what did Dr. Desoto do to make sure they were safe? To make sure he was not eaten, Dr. Desoto came up with a plan and tricked the fox by gluing his teeth together. I'm wondering how the fox felt when he realized that he was outsmarted by Dr. Desoto. I think maybe he was embarrassed. The fox was stunned. He stared at Dr. Desoto, then at his wife. They smiled and waited. All he could do was say, "Thanks for very much," through his clenched teeth, and get up and leave. He tried to do so with dignity. Then he stumbled down the stairs in a daze. Dr. Desoto and his assistant had outfoxed the fox. They kissed each other and took the rest of the day off. The end. How would you describe Dr. Desoto based on his actions in the story? Is he kind? Is he compassionate? Is he a risk taker? Is he a thinker?